I'm glad to see all of you. Well, Nika just asked me to say a few words about the way things are going with the Doxa project. I guess some of you might be aware of the developments here in Russia this spring. I'm not obviously I'm not part of this project. I just know the guys because we have a lot of collaboration, and actually we collaborated on David Graeber's on translation of David Graeber's book Bullshit Jobs, which was out last year. And the Doxa project, the student project, was very much involved in this translation. So now, well, this is a horizontal project. This is the way they present themselves. So they have no vertical structure, have no leaders, but still those who the authorities believe are the core group of the project, they are under home arrest right now. That is a logical consequence, I guess, of the development of political events here in Russia, and there was a lot of international support for the guys, which I think actually helped to alleviate their situation a little bit, to slow down this attack, this crackdown. Unfortunately, I cannot say that they're secure now because they're still waiting for the trial. And in addition to that, the rest of the journals, so those whom the police identifies as part of the journal, they are now taken to interrogations. So basically now they're working already with I think a dozen of people whom they interrogate on a regular basis. 4 of them are once again under arrest right now, so they cannot communicate. They are only allowed to walk for 2 hours a day, which actually is mostly eaten away by the visits to the interrogators. So that's the way things stand right now. The expectation is that all that is actually necessary to affect the situation before the parliamentary elections, which are scheduled for September, because the journal got really influential among the youngsters, and this is the new protest generation in Russia. So there's a lot of reasons to be afraid of another wave of protests from the youngsters, somehow related to those elections. So we don't know how does that unfold, but if everything goes quietly, probably to the lack of the government. In that case, we expect them to be released in September. But that's actually that's a tough prediction. We cannot be sure about that. And I think what the international community, the academic community, all the people around the world have already done, I really think it has affected their fate already. And I think a lot of support might be needed when the situation changes, when there are another developments there. I know from them, because I keep communicating with them, that they are really, really grateful for all the support that they get, and they are.
Sorry, Greg, I muted you by mistake.
I have to unmute. But that's actually probably there wasn't time, because I already finished, and I was just going to say that they are true to their ideals and trying to keep this horizontal structure alive despite all this pressure. Well, that's it, I guess. I don't know if you want me to say something else. Nika?
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, and definitely let us know what can we do carefully, very carefully, to not harm, but only to help. Yeah, if maybe you can say a couple of words about the this educational environment where it all happens, because you have been the professor, and also you know, one of the guys who arrested was a translator of David's book. So and they try to do some kind of outside of institutional structures as well.
Okay, so the question is about the general educational environment in Russia at that point. Well, I'm indeed a professor. I'm teaching political philosophy. I'm heading a MA program in political philosophy at Moscow School of Social and Economic Sciences. I would say, and that's the way I know some of the participants of the Doxa project. Well, the crackdown that they are part of, I think that they are victims of, is really damaging at this point the higher education in Russia. We have cleansings in what we call cleansings in some major universities. Those of them who are the leaders, I guess, in liberal education. Just a few days ago, information appeared that Bard College, the organization that actually was very instrumental in promoting the liberal education in Russia, because they had partnership projects, and they were really instrumental in promoting the liberal arts undergraduate education in Russia. So they were banned in Russia. They were declared well, how do they call it in the authorities? Something like unwelcome organization. Yeah, undesirable or something. Well, basically that means that they kick them out, and that's already a blow for a huge university in St. Petersburg that we're part of, because they were issuing joint degrees, but it's also a blow for the whole system of liberal education in Russia. So, I mean, politically, it's an interesting moment for us, because there's a real wave coming from below, from the students who are willing to be engaged in international communication, to get a decent education according to the standards of liberal education, and then there is this crackdown coming from the elites. And the guys from Doxa project, they're certainly at the intersection of those two waves. So that's why they are under arrest right now. So I don't know. It's difficult to predict how it turns out, but there will be, I think, a real battle coming up.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Nika, shall we continue?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I just wanted to, I think it's a perfect, beginning of this conversation of today, of this assembly, which is the first assembly after the Critical Studies Department took over under your kind invitation, the curatorship for 2 months of the Museum of Care. And one of the things that we proposed was to really focus and speak about education, and as we have heard from this first intervention, it is immediately very closely linked also to some of the most recent kind of political events and to sorry, somebody has a microphone. Okay, and I think it's a very important debate that we wanted to kind of today put on another level. We have this Critical Studies Department, the students. they have invited a lot of international guests, and I think this will be just the beginning of this kind of extended assembly where everyone will speak about their own experience, and I think this thing can grow, and we can also next time maybe have an update from the people who are involved in similar activities in Russia, India, or all over the world. And I think, well, my aspiration, personal aspiration, and why I really joined the project very kind of open-heartedly is because I think that it is important that this project is also taken over by the students and really becomes a platform or kind of where the students can exchange ideas and speak about the situation, where we can delegate them, or create this kind of open up this space of discussion, even if only online for the moment, and maybe somehow in the near future find a way how to realize some kind of an event or a more extended dialogue also in presence. So seeing the recent experience of COVID and seeing to what it really brought the educational institutions, I would like just give the floor to Critical Studies Department who have planned this assembly, and so that we can start today's discussion. And Nika, I know that you wanted also to intervene and inform everyone about the visual assembly. So, and then afterwards maybe we can start properly according to the plan that Paula and everybody planned for tonight. Thank you.
Yes, I want to thank you all so much for coming and for accepting this invitation, and I'm really looking forward. So we'll be very quick because it's so many speakers and we have looks like long assembly. So this visual assembly is a project that we started with David in the first lockdown, that was a year ago, and we very briefly will describe it with Clive Russell, who's here, because what we want to do, we want to introduce it to our guest curators and propose them to co-organize with us a next visual assembly in spring 2022, next year. Because this year we will have an assembly What is Museum, and we were thinking that the most important social space is an educational space. So I will ask Clive now maybe to describe it. We can show also a little presentation. I have it open, I can share screen, or Clive can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on my phone, so I'm going to be struggling to show a presentation.
Yeah, I can share the screen and then we can quickly show that. So visual assembly is, so it will be more understandable what is that. So visual assembly is the, oh yeah. So it's a collective art project. And it's an attempt to make collective decision-making about how to arrange social space. And it's very tricky to do that. So this is one of the ways that we propose. So it's contained two groups, one artist, one participants on Zoom. And it was invented because we were so tired of sitting on Zoom with David. So we wanted to do something in the real world. And so this is a wonderful presentation of Clive for our assembly, New Reina Sofia Museum. We started from creating a grid, as we did in Portobello Road with David. And that's empty parts that we will need to fill out and connect. Clive, maybe I can give you.
Yeah, I mean, to backtrack a bit, what we did in the first one at Portobello Market was there was a speaker, a friend of David's, an anthropologist, who sort of set the tone by talking about lost civilization in Lithuania. So it sort of placed people in the space that they were going to deliberate about. So there was a bit of a setup, and then there's a bit more of a setup by David to get people talking. And then we started creating crazy things. So So on that, he sort of opened up our minds to a different way of thinking. So start thinking aloud and thinking visually, and using a series of very simple icons, of which we'll have a lot more icons this time. We began to sort of imagine what this space that was at the time a city of care would look like. And by spraying onto the street at Portobello Market, we quickly created a crazy pattern full of pandas, a world full of weird bicycles, lots of trees. There was lots of revolutions. There was lots of changes. There was lots of weird deliberations, and a lot of it was delivered via chat, and everything was done very, very quickly. Now, this will be a lot larger and probably a little bit slower and probably better deliberated because we'll have more people doing it, but it will follow the same sort of crazy pattern. And as the deliberations are made, they'll be interpreted into these icons on the ground by a spray crew that will chalk spray onto the ground of the Reina Sofia Square and into these grids. And then as we progress through the assembly, these various topics will be joined together hopefully by using a piece of string and creating big rings around linked subjects. And by the end of this, I have no idea what we'll have in the square. And hopefully when we have a bit of a better idea of what the setup point of the deliberations will be, we might have some sort of meanings we can place within this grid to make it a little bit easier to navigate. But this is the beginning point. So this is what we'll be kind of adding into going up to September the 22nd.
Yeah, and we wanted to talk about that in the beginning because we're really looking forward for a long-term project collaboration and development. Yeah, so thank you.
Right, thank you. And so how shall we proceed, Paula, who's next? And maybe we can really start with our program. And thank you, Nika. And I hope, this was probably also an invitation for everyone to join. Like this will be in Madrid on the 22nd of September. Am I correct? Okay. Yeah.
Hello,
right.
Everyone. Thank you again for having us. My name is Emma. I'm part of the Critical Studies Department. I'm here in Milan, and we would just like to thank you all for being here and taking the time to have some really interesting conversations with us. Really quickly, we're the Critical Studies Department, and we created this fictitious department this past year during the pandemic after we saw really the problems with online learning, as we all have seen how our worlds have changed. And so we're really grateful to be taking time to work with the Museum of Care. And this is our first series of talks where we really hope that we're able to bring together different initiatives and individuals and groups and collaborations from all around the world that spark really interesting dialogues and hopefully future collaboration and think about. So we thought of a fun and we thought that given the time, wanted to think of this as a hypothetical dinner. And if we were, all together at a dinner, what is a dish that you would bring? And so we're asking all of the speakers or the hosts that will be sharing with us to, if you'd like, it's not mandatory to share with us. If you were to bring a dish or a drink or something to this dinner, what would it be? And we thought of a dish that kind of shares our own path, that shares our history, and we chose to bring a fried polenta because it's a traditionally very common food eaten around the world, a corn type of flour that's eaten in Italy, but all around the world. And if you'd like to share something that you would like, that would be nice. So the first thing we're going to start with is a video by Stodela. And if you have any questions for any of the interventions and the presentations, you can write in the chat, or you can intervene by turning on your microphone maybe at the end of the presentation. And at the end, maybe if we have time, we can share and have a dialogue all together. So thank you, and we will start this video now.
Робимо.
Опустела без тебя земля, как мне несколько часов прожить. Как же падает листва в садах, и куда-то все спешат такси, только пусто на земле. И когда летал экзюпери, так же падала листва в садах, и придумать не могла земля, как прожить ей без него, пока он летал, летал, и все звезды Опустела без тебя земля, если можешь, прилетай скорей.
Okay, so this was video we just recently met and presented in Rome with our students, and this was just to pose the questions, like what are the questions that we can pose now. Maybe from this, I think it's a perfect beginning for today's assembly. So you can go ahead with the program.
Thank you, Andris. Now we have Museos para Todos.
Hi, everybody. This is Alex here from Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. We are part of the group Museos para Todos, which have some members here: Agatha Souza, me, Alex, Maria Eduarda, Sofia, Júlia Maier, Lia Peixinho, and Mariana Pinheiro, I'm sorry. We are part of students in Unirio of museology. Museos para Todos is an initiative that began when National Museum of Brazil burned it down. It began after that, the day after that. If anybody here remembers that, but National Museum was completely burned. It had 200 years of history. All the heritage, or almost all the heritage, were gone down, burned out. The museum had only 500,000 reais per year to survive. It's something like less than $10,000 a month. It's nothing, right? It's nothing for a museum. And when it burned down, we began this organization, Museums for All, to bring the population back to the museums, or the students and everybody who doesn't know what is museums and what is a museology, what do we do for that, what is the participation of museology in the museum's life. And we had to point the segregation made by the museums here in Brazil, the segregation by economics, by socials, and all kind of problems and all kind of issues here in the museums. And when this museum burned out, Michel Temer, who was the president in 2018, he made a law 850 who extinguished the IBRAM. IBRAM is the Brazilian Institute of Museum. He extinguished that to make an association, a private association, which would mean more segregation. Right? He basically wanted to move the state museums to private museums. Basically, it was the plan, right? So we started this initiative to open the eyes of the population, and the teachers either came with us, other workers in museums, and well, it basically was that. After 3 years of struggling, many of those students are already graduated, but we keep on going, and we don't make many posts in Instagram or letters or all of that, but we make it a little bit harder inside of the institutions, inside of the school, taking the attention of the new students and the teachers and the workers of the museum, that we have to ask for more, for better places to work, for better places to study museology. We need more workers in the museums in Brazil. we need more budget in the museums, especially in the state museums, because every state museum here in Brazil is going down right now. We don't have an education political education from this government now, but we have a national plan of education, of museum educational. So it's something avant-garde, but it's not practiced in all the museums. So the Museums for All, Museus para Todos, was made for that.
And we have to say, our museum is still on attack. Last year, our environmental minister had the brilliant idea to transform, I don't know the word is that, but our environmental museum in a hotel, with the justification, using the arguments our museums only create 2 exhibitions per year and will be more. Ia ter mais lucro se transformasse em hotel. Só que
it would have more profit. It was created in a hotel, not a museum.
A gente conseguiu evitar isso.
We could avoid
Continuamos com o nosso museu.
And we continue with our museum, environment museum. That's it, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you so much. Next, we have a video that we're sharing because Cesare Pietroiusti can't be with us, and we will share that now.
Il formato del laboratorio secondo me può essere interessante sia da un punto di vista, diciamo, delle modalità in cui può prendere forma la formazione, in cui può estrinsecarsi la formazione, che anche in quelle in cui può prendere forma la esposizione di prodotti culturali e anche l'esposizione, diciamo, di arte, quindi il formato della mostra. Il laboratorio secondo me si pone in una situazione che può, diciamo, contribuire a dare nuovo senso sia alle esperienze formative che alle esperienze, diciamo, espositive. Io credo che alcune delle caratteristiche fondamentali del laboratorio possano essere identificate e chiaramente fra quelle forse più interessanti sono, diciamo, quella della, genericamente della sperimentalità, cioè il fatto che i partecipanti a un laboratorio non sanno in partenza, in anticipo, quello che faranno, quello che penseranno, quello che produrranno all'interno del laboratorio e non necessariamente si creeranno un problema, si faranno un problema del fatto di andare fuori tema all'interno, diciamo, di una struttura laboratoriale. Cioè io credo che la struttura laboratoriale sia quella che fra le varie modalità, diciamo così, in cui si produce il sapere attualmente, sia quella che lascia maggiormente la libertà di andare fuori tema. E questo secondo me è un punto molto interessante. L'altro aspetto che io vedo cruciale nel laboratorio è un nuovo possibile formato di leadership. Quindi la leadership non intesa come la capacità, la forza di dare una direzione di contenuto, di pensiero, di azione agli altri, quindi ai partecipanti del laboratorio, quanto, quindi non direzionale, quanto la capacità di creare un movimento circolare. E il leader nel laboratorio è colui il quale, o colei la quale, propone agli altri una dimensione di ospitalità, cioè una capacità di far sentire ai partecipanti a un lavoro all'interno di un laboratorio che appunto il leader ospita, offre spazio, accoglie i pensieri, gli stati d'animo, i desideri, le aspettative, le idee in generale dei partecipanti stessi. Quando i partecipanti identificano all'interno del gruppo una persona come quella che maggiormente offre questa dimensione di ospitalità, quella diventa il leader. Questa capacità circolare di fare circolare il pensiero determina una, diciamo in un certo senso, una situazione orizzontale in cui le idee di ciascuno dei partecipanti al laboratorio creano una specie di corpus unico e in cui le menti dei partecipanti diventano un'unica cosa. Il laboratorio efficace è quello in cui effettivamente si crea e funziona una mente di gruppo, è quello in cui si crea e funziona un'opera di gruppo, è quella in cui non si sa più chi ha detto, chi ha pensato cosa. E quindi è una situazione nella quale anche la autorialità viene, diciamo così, se non messa in discussione, ma comunque condivisa. Il terzo elemento, forse il più complesso, il più difficile, ma forse anche il più interessante in questo particolare momento storico, è quello di una diversa dimensione della temporalità. Allora, io ho parlato di temporalità elastica, in quanto ritengo che, per esempio, rispetto alla dimensione della lezione frontale, dell'unità didattica tipica, diciamo, dell'accademia, il laboratorio offre una dimensione nella quale la temporalità può espandersi secondo le esigenze del lavoro di quel gruppo e quindi può assumere un tempo, una durata che non è predeterminata, ma che è, diciamo, poi commisurata, diciamo, potenzialmente anche indefinitamente con le esigenze del gruppo che lavora. Questa, diciamo, possibilità di modificare l'approccio alla propria esperienza temporale, secondo me può essere, per esempio, contrapposta ad una dimensione di tipo consumistico, per esempio nel modo in cui viene visitata una grande mostra, mettiamo una biennale, e in cui appunto l'approccio del visitatore è quello di pensare: io ho pagato certi soldi per un biglietto, ho un determinato tempo a disposizione, devo vedere tutto e quindi dedico una frazione di tempo a ciascuna delle opere che sono in mostra. Questo è diciamo, un approccio consumistico che vuole consumare la mostra. Secondo me può essere rovesciato in una situazione in cui il visitatore mette il proprio tempo dentro l'opera, quindi che partecipa, entra a far parte col proprio tempo e intendendolo ovviamente in senso libero, quindi può essere un tempo esteso tanto quanto tutto quello che lui ha a disposizione per una sola cosa magari, e quindi può lasciar perdere tutte le altre. Questo rovescia l'approccio consumistico alla visita della mostra. Ma soprattutto credo che questa esperienza di una elasticità del tempo, di una considerazione elastica del tempo, sia interessante proprio da un punto di vista politico, nel senso che io credo che l'elemento più cruciale sulla quale si gioca la diciamo, battaglia della libertà dalla paura, della libertà del condizionamento, della libertà dal debito che assilla, costringe e ingabbia tutti noi attualmente, sia proprio la partita dell'esperienza temporale. Cioè nelle società apparentemente più veloci, iperconnesse, ipertecnologiche, quello che manca sempre di più ai soggetti è il tempo. E quindi sulla capacità di espandere il tempo, fare fluire il tempo, sospendere il tempo, addirittura sprecare il tempo, secondo me si gioca una partita politica.
Thank you.
Il formato del laboratorio.
I hope that the translations were fast enough. Unfortunately, the video was in Italian. And unfortunately, Cesare Petruzzi couldn't be with us tonight. He's an artist and a curator based in Rome. And as he talked about, is very focused on collaborative art projects and participation. And maybe in the next series of talks, he'll be able to speak with us because it's very interesting collaborations and hosts residencies and projects here in Italy. So next, we have Aria Spinelli and Maria Pecchioli.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, hear you great.
Yeah. So could I share my screen so I can show you a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, let me see if, I don't think I can make you a co-host, but
Okay.
perhaps Mika may be able to make you a co-host.
Okay, well, I'll just
You
start.
can also make co-host.
Yeah, I think you could. You should now be able to share.
Okay, I'm not going to be able to share. Okay, that's okay. So
I think, Aria, now you can share your screen.
Oh,
Just
I
try
can.
again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I am part of a collective that was founded in 2009 in Milan, together with artist Maria Pecchioli. I'm an independent curator and researcher. I'm currently based in Rome. Radical Intention is actually a project that started thanks to the master's program that Andris was also in NABA. We were all colleagues at NABA. And at the start of our project, we were looking to create spaces of gathering and also sort of informal spaces of discussion within the contemporary art scene in Milan. And since then, we've been working mostly on long-term projects, and we collaborate with curators and with other artists, and we're mostly interested in socially engaged practice, and also in artists that are interested or that tackle political issues. I decided to, out of the range of projects that we organized, I decided to look into a long-term project that we've been organizing in Tuscany at a platform for artists, at a residency for artists called Corniolo Art Platform. And the project is called Decompression's Gathering Summer Camp. And the project looks into how to use actually free time as a creative space, and not only a creative space for an individual artist, but also a creative space for collectivity. And we were also looking into notions of time and space and into radical pedagogy. So throughout the residency that happens every 2 years in Tuscany, which happens actually for only a week at the end of the summer, we organize a series of activities that go from workshops with visiting artists, and also as Radical Intention, we look into performative practice. And so we've been doing educational performative practice with the group, and we test out different kinds of exercises. And we also work a lot with the territory. So we create a link with between Tuscany and the different spaces in Tuscany, which are mostly rural. So they're mostly rural spaces. And the theme that the visiting artist has proposed. So Over the years, we've worked with collectives, and we've also worked with artists, mostly socially engaged artists. So we've invited Working Klauser, Steve Lambert, Amy Franceschini, Brett Bloom from Temporary Services. And we also worked with a curator who is based in Berlin called Berit Fischer. And in each case, the visiting artist would propose a different theme to work on. And the themes normally are part of their practice. So for example, in this image, you can see on the top right, Brett Bloom that organized the whole residency around group work, and Amy Franceschini organized the whole residency around farming culture. And both of these themes are very much part of their practice. And the interesting thing is that we actually managed to every year to meet with students from a school that was founded in the 1950s by a priest called Don Milani. The reason why we go there every year is because Don Milani sort of represents one of the most important examples of radical pedagogy in Italy. And he created a school that changed the lives of the sons of farmers in the 1950s, and was really an emancipative form of education. And it was he in a post-mortem publication, he told, or at least they managed to gather enough information on his techniques. The book is called Lettera ad una professoressa. And the book was actually used by most of the social movements in the 1970s who were dealing with education, mostly in the Reggio Emilia. So the Barbiana, as you can see on the left, becomes our kind of hotspot every year, in which we discuss about education with all the colleagues that come to participate in the residency. Throughout the years, it's been quite interesting to look into the same territory again and again, and we've managed really to cover, create a map of a lot of different spaces that are connected to farming culture and to rural areas. Another aspect which is quite interesting about it is the fact that the group is very international, and coming from New Zealand, Australia, or the UK, Europe, as well as the US. And in each case, there are different approaches to education, and every single time it becomes a discussion on what type of methodologies could be used. We're very interesting also, well, thanks to the project, we became more and more interested into the relationship between speech and body, and really using performative practice. And it's really thanks to the decompression and all the collaborations that we had, and the collaborators that came on board, but also the artists that participated, that formed our own practice. So so we're looking forward to continuing the project after COVID, and we have a list of artists that we would like to invite. And we're still going to, in a post-pandemic world, I guess there's a lot of questions to be made around that relationship between the body and space and speech and politics. So we're probably going to be looking into that in the future. And that's it.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Beto. He's leaving. Next, we have, I'll leave the word to Zasha.
Thanks. We actually had 3 artists joining, but I think they're listening, but it's not a good moment for them. And they actually left me some thoughts. And I thought maybe I just read what they left me. So the artists are Yogesh Barve, Savia Lopez, and Amol Patu. And they said, thank you for putting us in touch and making us part of this wonderful program. We went through the details of the program as well as the Museum of Care and had a small discussion amongst us about our participation. And the reason I'm reading this is because they're from my hometown, Bombay, and they, I think, have a lot, what they say, which is so short, has a lot to say with Alex, what you just spoke about, Alex and Sophia, you know, in New Delhi, the museum and the National Museum and the National Archives are being forced to move and close down. There's a huge outcry about it. And also what's happening with Doxa, paradoxically, I feel that was a very, well, when I read what they said, maybe you understand why I feel the need to read it out to all of you. Just to understand the kind of solidarities I think could come out of this group. And I hope they participate in a future meeting. So they said, we had a small discussion amongst us about our participation. We realized that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to speak about topics that we have been long speaking about. But at the same time, we also feel that we need our individual space. Even though we could speak collectively on the topic of anti-institutions and anti-education, we feel that it will be too extreme if we start speaking about it in an unfiltered manner online. We won't be able to be diplomatic or not talk about financial insecurities and the situation such projects put us under. Eventually, it all zeroes in on privileges that people hold. The topics aren't new, and neither will be the reactions to it. The intention of not wanting to participate has come from past and current struggles of constantly speaking against systems. Okay, so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing. Okay. Next, all right. Hopefully in the future, we'll be able to discuss more with you and with them. So thank you. Next, we have Ma Yongfeng.
Can I share some PDF here or?
Yeah, we can hear you.
And okay.
You can also share screen if you want.
Screen. I've uploaded the file to the.
Okay, I can share it if you want for you, and you can go ahead with.
Yeah, okay. Okay, no problem. And okay. My name is Ma Yongfeng. I'm from Beijing, China. And I'm an artist, curator, and activist based in Berlin now. And today, thank you for having me here. And today, I'd like to share one project I have made in 2011 and in 2012. And here you can see the, this is the one project I have. It's guerrilla living syndrome. I have initiated in 2011 with many young artists and architects in Beijing. This project, guerrilla living syndrome, it's kind of very unique methodology. we try to develop alternative, flexible, and guerrilla social mobilization. And because at that moment in Beijing, the Chinese government called for most of the people to buy the property, but actually most of the young people cannot afford to buy any kind of property. So we want to, and instead we want to, we called for young artists and architecture together. We want to do some street intervention project in the out of the gallery and the museum and any kind of institution. So, and I initiated this project with several friends together, and we want to develop actually the basic structure. We want to develop some project or guerrilla architecture or easy to bring structure and the street intervention just in the street. So we want to because there are many the government want to the young people to focus on the issue, we want to change something, change the issue, the conventional social attitude about how to live in China, and we would like to take a kind of suspicious and uncooperative attitude towards this government bullshit, because they just want to young people to stay in the new apartment, shining volume, and they stay there. They don't, they can't, because they have to pay the rent or the money every month. So they have no time and energy for any kind of resistance. So, and for this, we think everyone could be everyone, actually, everyone, you don't need a apartment. You can do any kind of work in the street. So the many, I remember many young artists and architects, they are very interesting to join the project in the street, because nobody they present and showed their work in the galleries and museum and some fancy white space. And but this project, after almost 10 years, I have this picture is, and we recreated this project in front of the museum in Shanghai. And the exhibition, this exhibition, one of my friends curated in Shanghai. That's precariat meeting. So I built a lot of temporary and mobile structure in front of the museum, and I use the stencil graffiti to make some slogan like a guerrilla mobilization on this migrant workers and bad structure, and also some like imagination, all power to the imagination. Actually, I also combined this the other project I have made together. The Uncut Talks. Uncut Talks is an online radio. I have found with several artists and critics together, including one of my friend Alexandra Rolandi. So this radio and online broadcast, we have made a lot of socially interview with socially engaged artists and activists and architecture and some interesting people, interesting activists. And also in front of the museum, we also do some live interview with different people. And inside of this triangle caravan, it's a small radio. We can do the interview social intervention or socially engaged art interview, because this microphone will broadcast this sound very far away, several blocks away. So it's basically we want to develop some, very alternative and very flexible and very self-organized architecture model for the in the street, and for the migrant workers, for the homeless people, even for the artists and architects, they also could stay in the street in their architecture or in their guerrilla architecture for several days for the different experience. So that's what we want to do in the street. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we have Alessandro Rolandi up next.
Good evening. It's okay. Yes. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for inviting me. I am Italian as origin, and I've been living and working in Beijing since 2003. And for the first 7 years, I was basically joining the local communities and find this very lively scene in what it was socially engaged art, intervention art. I met Ma that you just heard, and I collaborated with him in many projects. And I was just basically blending with the local scene and trying to learn and to respond and to follow what the artists were doing. And after this early years, in 2010, I got in touch with randomly with a young CEO of an industrial company that produces valves, a French one, that was interested in art and in a different way. So I found that there was maybe the possibility to try and do something that was not from the outside, but the inside. So I worked 1 year with workers 2-3 times a week with my limited Chinese. And I negotiated with the company a few simple rules, like that people on a voluntary base could take some time from work and spend it with me to discuss, to chat, to do small actions in a very open way. This, after 9 months, seemed something interesting. So the company asked me to imagine a project. And so I took a couple more months and came back and asked them to create a department with a fictional name. We call it Social Sensibility R&D. You know, in an industrial company, you have the R&D for technical research. And they accepted that. So I got hired and I asked like a minimum salary I asked to be hired to give a different message, to give a different commitment in terms of the time, and also in terms of not getting a sponsorization for something entertaining but limited in time. And since then, I invited then many artists to come to the factory with 4 residencies. But in the end, I invited many people all the weeks around, just spending time there. And I kept the whole process informal in a way that everybody could invent and find a way to interact with me and to interact with the artists. And we had a very loose idea that from these interactions, some projects could come out, multimedia, artistic, creatively performative. And we collected many of these projects. And another of the rule, I negotiated that the projects did not belong to the company, but they belonged to the people who made it. So if they were collaboration, if they were work done by workers only, or artists, or together. And basically, I wanted to create a dynamic where there was something that was not productive, but it was very present. And after a few years, I also got another friend of mine who's Chinese, an artist, that she just became a mom. So she could not be with us, but maybe in the next meetings. And so together we developed a more sort of methodology. So we kept inviting artists over, but also we started to interact, as I did at the beginning, with the workers who were really more interested in exploring the language of creativity and art. And so we had these two parallel initiatives. One was called Work and Live, where we constantly discuss and record the conversations about art, life, work issues with a very open-end and loose, informal and organic way to be. We didn't have an office. We could just go around. This was also negotiated in the rules. So we met with people on the stairway next to the working line, or sometimes smoking cigarettes, sometimes in the office. We adapted to how people felt comfortable with, those who wanted to be with other people, those who wanted to be alone with us. And so it's been like 10 years, 11 years that the department is working. And in 2005, I also started to export it in the factory in Paris, in Gonesse. And since then, I also got involved with another artist who I also hope she can be with us next time. But today she is also a little baby since very few months, so she couldn't be. And she's French there. And we have developed a lot of situations, and we have interacted a lot with the art world, in the sense that we had these movements like artists coming to the factory and workers making artwork that then were exhibited in museums and in exhibitions and in galleries with professional artists. But obviously the real point was to create this living dynamics. So we have a lot of very interesting, Paula is sharing with you some links so you can check the works from the workers and from the artists and the text we've written and the articles. But what I'd like to communicate is just this capacity to create an entity. And we had no check on our purpose, on our final pieces. And most of what happened, like I can say like 30% has been about art. But what is interesting is many other things happened. Like people were using us as a sort of informal HR, as informal trade unions, as personal educational tool for the kids, and I've interpreted the project on my part as the initiator and facilitator, as to keep it as open as possible. So we also received activists, we received educators, and we let them interact with the workers in a way that was always as equal as possible, in the sense that I didn't imagine that our workers and artists were coming to save or do something, but they were also coming to test their ideas and their commitment, and meeting with the people that sometimes they wanted to defend, but meeting directly and see what happens. And it's been complicated and difficult, but it's been very inspiring. And it's also, I initiated it, but it was also because of the network and the experiences and all the people that then I brought back to the projects and their generosity. And although there is, I put up also, I designed a form of economical rewards. So the artists and also the workers, when they made something and went to the museums, were treated like artists, so invited. And but the most important thing of the this system was that you were not paid to make something or to sell something, but it was always for the time that you will give to these encounters that were not necessary, not mandatory, but they happened. And also there were a lot of issues. We had, sometimes the workers used us to denounce some mistreatments. Sometimes the company had to fire some managers, some other times. So there was a whole lot of things that happened just because we could legitimately be there with this department. And so I'm very glad to be able to share more about this. And the document that Paula has given provide you like a sort of broad references. And yeah, I think it's okay for, I already spoke a lot. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Alessandro. Yes, we have the documents in the chat if you want to save them.
Yeah.
So, thank you. And next we have Campo Base.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
So I'm Ginevra Ludovici from Campo Base, and I'm here tonight with Bianca Buccioli. We are two of the 6 members of Campo Base. That is a collective that we co-founded together in 2018, end of 2018. I'm gonna share for you like our website so that we can show some pictures of our project very rapidly. So let me see. Okay, can you see it? Voila.
Yes, you can see.
Okay, so this is our about, but just to mention that we are a very heterogeneous group. We are a group composed by researchers, philosophers, curators, mediators, art historians, and writers. And we currently operate as an itinerant platform. But when when the collective was founded, actually, we started with a space. This space was in Turin. And actually, we got together because we were studying together. We were selected for this master program at Fondazione San Vittore Baudengo, and we found ourselves in this very intriguing position of being together with strangers, and we started to say, what would it be interesting to, what does it mean to collaborate with people you don't know? And what are the points of contact between these people? Because generally collective are built out of shared visions and practices. So we tried this experiment with our space, and that was in this neighborhood, Aurora neighborhood in Turin, and we started to define our self-institution process that happened mainly through self-education. So we invited many friends or colleagues on people that we were interested in to have conversations with us and to share knowledge about some tools that we found interesting for ourselves. Like storytelling, for example, but also many others. And also we did this self-institution process with our programming that consisted in many different formats. Some are here. We did critical sessions with artists that at the time were in Turin. We did some more discursive practices. We call it meet and focus. So there was we did a focus on Ruan Gruppa because the Ruan Gruppa at that moment just got appointed as curator of Documenta. So we were very interested in discussing about it. And also we spoke about like independent spaces and urban transformations. And also we did some screenings. But why we did all these all these formats. For us, it was important to share knowledge and to create the conditions for favoring a discussion between participants and we were actually participants. We never understood ourselves as different from the people that were entering in our space. And finally, after a year of programming, we did this event that was the bigger event that we did in our. It was not all in our space. It was all around Turin, in many different venues. It was called House of Displacement. And the idea of focusing or pairing together the notion of the house with that of displacement came from a very personal feeling that we were having at the moment of our life. Basically, we were all feeling displaced, and we wanted to explore more the condition of displacement. And we did it in Turin in many different venues with many different artists, and these are just some of the things that we did. This was a performance. We created a to do nothing space in our space where people had to do nothing. You know, the different, very discursive events and this tram led by Progetto Diogene. So many different things. And after this year, we decided to our lives again changed because we were in the displacement process, and we decided that we should change our nature as well as a collective and not be rooted in one place, but to be itinerant as we are currently. And so in that moment also we won a residency in Angar in Barcelona, and so we did house displays in Barcelona. Why we did that? So because we were very interested in understanding how the issue of or the condition of displacement changes according to places. So we didn't want to impose our pre-notions on displacement. We wanted to learn with and through other people, colleagues, artists, researchers, and so on. And this project was very difficult because we started the residency and we were about to end it when the pandemic outbroke. So was very complicated. Finally, we did the restitution of the residency. It was a festival again in September. When it was, Bianca? September last year.
Like October.
October, thank you. And but the moment of the pandemic was very important for us to reflect upon about many things. And currently, but also we weren't that productive, to be honest, because everything was shut down. So we spent a lot of time reflecting on ourselves and sharing knowledge between ourselves and other people that we happen to have the chance to connect with Zoom like today. And the last project we wanted to talk about is this open call that we won last September, and is What Do You See? And I'm mentioning this project just because it's very interesting how we are like continuing this self-institution process, and we're changing again, and from curators as facilitators, as organizers, as producers, we with this project we became also very part of the artistic process. So for example, Bianca became a performer. She used her voice for the voiceover of this video installation that we produced together with artist Daniele Costa. And also we wrote the script for the video, and so we changed our nature again, and this was thanks to the dialogue and to the cross-pollination with Daniele, that for the entire length of the project became actually a member of Campo Base. So we are trying to expand also the collective and reflecting upon the issue of temporality and yeah, linked to the project. But now we are more and more into this notion of affects, and because people enter in our life, we work together and we create a bond that of course changes us. So we are very interested in the transformative power of affects, and yeah, so we try to reflect that in our practice. So this is it from us. I don't know if Bianca wants to, from me, I don't know if Bianca wants to say something more.
Maybe later in the discussion with other, because the time is going fast.
Yeah, we have
Thank you.
We have a few more presentations, and then we can maybe discuss at the end. We just want to make sure to have everyone. But thank you so much.
Thanks to you.
All right. Thank you. Next, we have Gilson Plano in Brazil, and we're going to do a live translation from Portuguese to English. We have one of our classmates and in the critical studies department here is Brazilian, so she's going to help us with the translation. So if you have questions or things don't go maybe clearly, maybe just write in the chat and we'll try to make everything as clear as possible. So thank you.
Obrigado pelo convite. Queria agradecer a Gabriela pela possibilidade de interlocução com esse grupo e ouvir tantas experiências de desdobramentos em relação à educação e dimensões curatoriais, enfim, com tantas dinâmicas. Meu nome é Gilson, eu nasci no Brasil Central, em Goiás, e já há 3 anos moro no Rio de Janeiro. E aqui eu tenho trabalhado em algumas instituições. Trabalhei durante 2 anos no Parque Lage, também nesse processo esse intercâmbio entre educação e curadoria. E agora, desde o ano passado, tenho estado no BAN Rio, trabalhando como coordenador de educação, e queria compartilhar com vocês um pouco o que a gerência de educação tem pensado nos processos de educação aqui, por conta de uma série de...
Can I use the voice to do this translation? First, I think it's better than writing in the chat. Okay, so Gilson was saying that he's really thankful for being here. He's Brazilian. He's born in middle Brazil, and he's been he's living in Rio de Janeiro about 3 years now. And he's sharing today with us some educational projects with the museum he's working for right now. It is the National Museum, the Modern Art Museum of Rio de Janeiro. Okay, Gilson, thank you. You can go on, and maybe I will pause you again. Thanks.
Okay. A gerência de educação do MAN tem construído um programa que mudou bastante por conta da pandemia. Então, muitos dos nossos programas que eram voltados quase exclusivamente para escolas a gente passou a desenvolver programas que têm uma relação com o desenvolvimento de criação de programas, principalmente em modalidades virtuais, pensando outros processos de difusão.
So the museum right now with the pandemic has changed a lot with the program of the institution, and now they are doing. Sorry, Gilson, what did you say you were doing right now? O que você disse que vocês estão fazendo agora nesse momento?
Ao invés de pensar um programa dedicado a olhar para as exposições e criar a partir delas, pensar processos de criação que vêm desde a educação, como residências, programas de comissionamento, e que não necessariamente estão vinculadas aos programas escolares, como comumente era construído anteriormente.
Okay, so at the moment, they are not looking for the exhibition as the exhibition like before, but now they are doing some structural changes with the educational sector, and they are trying to do the exhibitions from the educational program. So they are doing this shift.
E todos esses programas que o Departamento de Educação tem desenvolvido estão alinhados a um pensamento também que vem da diretoria artística, de pensar uma programação integrada no museu antirracista, com outros personagens, outros artistas, outras vozes que estiveram muitas vezes encobertas na história do museu em outros momentos.
And comes for the artistic direction that is new, and they want to revisit the vision of the museum with the collection and the program, the educational program. So they want to integrate with they want to integrate in general the museum, and that's the big change at the moment.
E dentre esses programas, eu queria dar destaque e mostrar para vocês, compartilhar um dos programas de comissionamento que a gente tem desenvolvido desde o ano passado, que se chama Animan, que é um programa onde, a partir dessa relação da educação, a gente dá destaque para um dos artistas do museu e da coleção e convida um compositor e um animador para criar um produto que é um produto didático, mas também é uma obra de arte. Então, a gente mistura um pouco o que é a educação e o que é produto de comissionamento artístico.
Okay, so Gilson would like to share with us right now a video that is a work of art, because it's part of this new phase of the museum, and it was made in the last months with the programs they are doing right now. So he would like to share with us this video. Gilson, eu acho que você não compartilhou o áudio, a gente não está ouvindo.
Vocês escutam agora?
Não, ainda não.
Deixa eu verificar.
I think you should. Eu acho que você tem que tirar o compartilhamento e compartilhar novamente.
Uma produção Rio.
Construir, construir, construir. O museu, o museu, o museu. Construir, construir, construir. O museu, o museu, o museu. O museu.
Era isso. E o vídeo tem um pouco essa intenção de como a gente tem pensado em reconstruir a dinâmica do museu a partir de um pensamento de educação, né, que pensa toda a história do museu e trazer outras vozes e outras imagens também para esse espaço.
Sorry, I was, the connection was not very good at the end of the video, so I didn't hear what you said at the end, Gilson. But if you can, talvez você possa repetir para mim o que você falou nesse finalzinho e eu falo só o final, porque a conexão saltou para mim.
Eu disse que eu acho que o vídeo ele resume um pouco esse desejo de trazer outros personagens para dentro desse espaço do museu, que é uma ação que a gente tem construído em toda a programação, não só da educação, mas de todos os departamentos.
Okay, perfect. So Gilson said that he thinks that the video resounds the desire of bringing other characters to the
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. All right, so we have some problems with the audio. Can you hear me? It's good now. Okay, great. Yes, we are having some feedback issues. Okay, now we have Polly Marcantia, which is our last presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm one of the members, and Melanie and Francesca as well. I will share a screen if that's okay, and hi, thank you for having us. Okay.
So as Valentina was saying, we are Polymarcantia. We're three artists that we started this art collective since the end of 2019. And we take our name as an inspiration or as a guidance of a plant, of a moss plant. And very briefly, we took these characteristics, which is a very noble and very small plant that appears in disturbed areas. And what it does is to restore the soil for other plants to regrow again. So we took this inspiration of these characteristics and we applied also in our behavior, in our collective, in our work. And this entertain attitudes that can be our guidance in how to work in our practice and research in the practice is embodied in what we do.
Yes, we always talk about our method in terms of being in the space. So looking for a specific site and reading it as an ecosystem. And an example that we want to bring is one of the market, because we saw it not only as a site, as I said before, but as an interconnected system where a different kind of relations can occur. So when we deal with ecosystem, we relate with specific material. And for example, in the case of the market, were boxes and cardboards, but also with different languages. And in the market, as we know, is full of people that comes all over the world, but also specific dynamics that characterize the ecosystem and that makes it unique. And so in this first experience in the market, we acknowledge the value of the interactions, also of the exchange and the dynamics between people, but also between the elements of the site itself. But entering in the ecosystem is not always an harmonious process, because sometimes we may feel as outsiders, but other times we find instead for point of context to carry out different kind of conversations.
And especially conversations became one of our main focuses. And in the idea of conversating with not just another person, but what can we relate in a conversation or communicating with those elements that embody these spaces as ecosystems. And we set this as a path where we start thinking about how do we tune to other forms of intelligence, how we explore other sides, and even the idea of knowledge that we explore through different, not just people from different areas, but how can we get in touch and learn and de-learn in a different way. And I don't know, Vali.
No, it's okay. I carry on. The idea of listening becomes fundamental as through our practice, we encounter that it's apparent passivity of listening is actually extremely fundamental when we enter in, not only in conversation, but we want to cohabit in a deep manner with the sites and with ecosystems. So we also look into deep listening as a way, as a tactic, as an attitude to have, what can we listen, how can we learn from these other forms of life and intelligence, and hear from unheard stories and other ways of inhabiting, as we do from the plant, for example. And of course, acknowledging the richness of the polyphony of voices in these conversations. And in our specific way of doing this research and practice, we propose different gestures that we call gesture seeds. And we always discuss that they are not meant to be artworks, rather they are
part of the process.
Exactly. Our research forms certain actions, but these actions also shift or sometimes even break the already pre-existing idea. So they're also forming how we research, how we investigate, how we think, and how we talk with others. So we wanted to bring two examples of gestures we have done in this past year that we were each of us located in different cities. So also dealing with the idea of displacement and the idea of distance and how to be in a space and also in constant dislocations through some meetings and not being able to go to some spaces. As for example, there is the question of how to move a landscape, for example. And this one that is called croaking frogs. Fra, I don't know if you want to tell a little bit.
Yes, so these first gestures is called croaking frogs. And in Tovo San Giacomo, that is a small town in Liguria, in Italy, where I was born, we discovered these water tanks from which when the sun goes down, it's possible to listen to the croaking of frogs. So they are able to interrupt the silence that is so typical from these small villages. And this sound was my lullaby when I was a baby. So in this case, listening for us became an important attitude, because only by tuning ourselves to these stories, we were able to recognize, but also give value to this specific sound. And so starting, of course, as my personal experience, then we thought to move this sound, this croaking of frogs in different contexts, also to give the possibility to others to enjoy these encounters, but also how a personal stories place in a different ecosystem can provoke new stories, but also new discoveries.
And a second gesture we thought and we activated in relation to this idea of landscape and of distance and this idea of the postponed contact that was very strong during the isolation was this idea of a landscape to squeeze. So also comes from the gesture of holding a lemon and taking a lemon from a tree. Something that's very subtle and appears very quotidian maybe. Yeah, that it is also in the Ligurian area of Italy, and as some of you may know, it carries also a lot of history from the territory, and it's very characteristic. So also this fragment of landscape that also travels, what does it carry with it, and how does it move in some way a landscape, or dislocates, if not the territory, the experience of the territory. And then we also began to respond with other fragments of landscapes that we send via mail with different objects. So this idea of creating a sort of postponed contact, but that also was carrying different layers of meaning. And when we deal with this idea of contact, we also began to question the ideas of community. And what do we say when we say community, and whether these sort of contacts from one person to the other can create this idea of extended community or a decentered community, or something that is flowing, growing. Sorry?
Flexible.
Yes.
And organic in that way.
Exactly. So by these very subtle gestures, we allow ourselves not only to produce and to activate things, but also to question and to reflect on what do we say when we say community, for example. So it's also a process when we are in constant theorization and activation of gestures. And in the spirit of conversation, we also were able to talk, for example, with a microbiologist about plants and how they behave, and about roots. So we think that the plants doesn't only constitute the content of a research, but actually show us possible ways in which we can relate to each other and experience, in this case, also the idea of community and how roots, for example, here she says that the roots make decisions based on what is best for most of them, for the whole being. So this idea of working in a sort of way that is exactly a community. And another way we find to think about community is the idea of forests and how, for example, forests as a community, as an ecosystem, they thrive because of the diversity, because of the polyphony of voices. So without the multiplicity, forests would die. And even not only in terms of species, but also in terms of the different temporalities and scales that are in constant process of becoming and falling apart in a way, no? So it's always very connected. So in this idea of thinking how to experience community, we thought of sharing our practice, which is not maybe directly related to the problem of education as a theme, but we believe also in the idea of how we research, how do we build our thought, and how do we risk breaking it and finding new things is very nurturing, at least for us as researchers, as a collective. And that's it. I hope we're clear enough. And
yes, very clear. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We have only 10 minutes for a quick discussion, and then Zoom is unfortunately going to kick us all out. But we would like to talk with everyone if anyone has any questions or comments, reflections, either in the chat or you can turn your mic on. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. I don't know, maybe just Nika, you can just comment. I think it was wonderful to see this kind of like really polyphonic constellation of different experiences, and I really like enjoyed, like it was very like seeing so many different perspectives together. Maybe that's also the beauty of this attempt. Like, and Nika, do you? Yeah, I think we should definitely continue in this direction. And I was wondering if you would suggest also if like references, or if you felt that we sort of were in line with some of the texts or some of the recent researches you were trying to come up with together with David, and because still the Museum of Care is sort of born around also his ideas, and did you felt that this approach of today's assembly somehow was in line with your practice? And maybe you can just comment briefly on what you saw. And I thank really everyone who took the effort and put together this wonderful program.
Oh, I'm so glad and grateful for you put it so quickly. And it's really like, you know, amazing, international, and so many people. And yeah, I just wonder maybe what I would suggest for the next time. I started to ask Zasha correctly, yeah, about this controversial, I think very principal question about what actually we are fighting for and what we are fighting against, because that's obviously extremely important. And maybe, so I suggest we also put together some kind of discussions, not only talks, and the discussion would have a theme. So if I understand Zasha correctly and her friends, we're coming back to the question of state and autonomy. So if we also autonomous and also free and anti-educational, we're all very privileged to have an education, to have a free time to do what we do and what we share with each other. And it's basically a big question, what about the others, how we relate to most of other humans. And yeah, and I don't have any answers. I'm really grateful for the questions. It's kind of make me think, but so it's like one proposal, but I also suggest maybe Paula and Andres and everybody else yeah, to to um, to talk about the what we can do next. Oh, and by the way, maybe I can invite Boris Groys for the next time. I will try, because that's exactly what we talked last time. We were in New York with David and Groys. We were talking about museums being privatized as a major trend now, and we entering the new social system with the feudals running the feudals running the cultural and educational spaces in a different ways. So it's actually, according to Groys, it's already had happens. We are there. Yeah. But thank you so much, everybody. It was really a pleasure.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the important questions of also this assembly is, I think it was great that we started with the video of Studieleit, because I think we have arrived at a point where it is actually unclear, like we have asked different questions for all these last years. So what are the questions that we can ask now after what we have just experienced? And I don't have the answer, and I think that was a beautiful kind of answer, like that's the only thing that could happen is a miracle. So which was like still an open question. So I mean, actually to start really to think about like what questions can we pose and what lexicon can we use is what we could try to do in these meetings maybe. And I think this, like what we saw today, these different languages, was very stimulating, like to think about where we're at and what we can do with this. And I think that's, yeah, it would be great to structure this like debate or dialogue a little bit more afterwards, so maybe we can be in touch, especially with those ones who initiated Museum of Care, so that we can sort of put it into the ground, that it arrives maybe, or that we sort of come to, at least the next discussion would be, let's say, a continuation of what we opened up today. Okay. Someone wants to intervene?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Hans. I actually have a quick question. I'm sort of new to the whole, can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. I'm new, sort of a newcomer to the process, the Museum of Care and Critical Studies Department collaboration here. But just kind of a clarifying question maybe for the Critical Studies Department. Are you guys trying to put together like a map or some sort of a interactive index of like social spaces that are happening? Is that the idea?
Yes, exactly. So we're trying to think about, in addition to these series of talks and discussions, about a map that is interactive and online as a virtual space to bring these different initiatives together. So you've got that right. Yeah.
Cool. That's all. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much to everyone for participating. And we can leave our email in the chat if you don't already have it, to continue some more discussions. And next month in July, we're going to have another Zoom call, and we would love for all of you to participate. And again, thank you so much to everyone for the opportunity, and we hope to work together.
Okay, and guys, sorry, just one thing. Do you want it also to anticipate the initiative of only students that you wanted to launch? Or is that coming?
Yes, so we are working on a dialogue conversation evening that will be July 15th, if I'm correct. And we would like to have a dialogue with students that are working on similar initiatives like ours. And we had our last day of our master's class today. So we are trying to, really think about the next steps and to continue these conversations outside of the institution and outside of university. So if you have any other young students who are working on similar research projects or groups and collectives, we would love to have more conversations with them. And that event will be in 2 weeks. So if anyone would like to share, we would be very grateful.
Yes, we are looking forward to knowing you. Sorry, it was not my fault. And in the end, we were very happy about this polyphony, final polyphony. It's the starting point for everything. So it was necessary to stay in this, I don't know, to listen to different voices. And then we can understand each other and support each other and maybe start a path of solidarity together also. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Our email is in the chat, right.2.gsd@gmail.com. So we look forward to collaborating and speaking with you soon. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
A pleasure.